And we also welcome our dear speaker, Wendy, who will be introduced later on. Just so you know, that great new welcome sign was created by Lorraine, who's sitting back there at the visual board. And it's symbolic because, as you know, we welcome all ages, all nationalities, all faiths. That's what unity is all about. Our vision, please join with me and share it together, is a world powerfully transformed through the growing movement of shared spiritual awakening. And our mission follows that vision. Our mission is to co-create with Spirit to transform lives through shared spiritual awakening. That transformation comes in all manners. It can be a tiny, weeny transformation when you wake up some morning, you see the gray sky and the rain, and you say, oh, horrible. And the transformation can be you remembering that inside you have that fount of 12 powers and divine essence, and there is a reason to rejoice, no matter what the weather. So we transform each day ourselves. And as we transform, we help others to transform. We are all one. The only areas that separate us are our egos, our beliefs, and our fears. And it's great to have beliefs, and it's okay to have fears. Those are all part of being human. But when we let them separate us from other people, that's not so great. So we are all one. Most of us have fears. All of us have egos. We just don't want them to separate us. By seeing and by being a loving, inclusive, supportive community, we bridge all those differences. When we learn to express ourselves as worthy individuals, worthy of love, worthy of being accepted, we also learn how to accept others. And they see that in us. So self-expression, self-love means that we encourage others to express. And we can do that no matter what our age. And that's a worthy goal. We believe in the 5 principles at Unity of London. We believe that God is everywhere because God is within us. Everywhere we are, God is. Whether it's in the middle of the night, whether it's in the middle of the afternoon, 24 hours a day, God is everywhere present as us, flowing through us. We are an expression of divine presence. We create the world we want by how we choose to think, how we respond. Times when we might react in anger, we stop and choose to respond with love and acceptance. We pray, affirming all that is good, releasing what is not working in our lives. And we live the message. We live the message of unity. We live the message of divine presence within. And if Sylvia were up here, she'd be laughing away. We also live with laughter and joy. We get a chance to be the change. There's a lot that doesn't work in our world right now. We know that. But we get to be the change in tiny ways, in larger ways. Never, ever think that you don't matter. From the tiniest baby to the oldest person, every single one of us matters. And every single one of us makes a difference in this world. Let it be a positive, wondrous difference. We coexist. We coexist with one another. Oh, I forgot at the beginning. Please turn off your cell phones. Sorry. I always forget to say that. We provide fellowship and education for spiritual seekers of all walks of life. And we do that. Well, we did a Pizza and Principles last week. 5 people attended, which was awesome. I was so happy to see those 5 people. And there are courses online. Wendy, our speaker today, does many, many courses. And hopefully I'll be doing many as well. But Wendy and there are licensed Unity teachers all over Canada, the United States, and the world who provide courses. We have special announcements today, and later on, one of our members will share an announcement. First, our membership directory. Have you seen Lorraine Rynan up here? There's a chair right over there against the wall with a nice pale green background. She's been taking photos. And last week, she took Chuck, Suzanne, and Duke. Great photo. And Duke was so well behaved, Wendy, you would have been absolutely inspired. I was. So if you have, today I think is the last day that Lorraine is taking photos. This is for our membership directory so that if we want to connect with each other, we can. And you can choose whether you have your information in, what information you want in. If you just want your picture and your first name, I'm sure that would be fine. But we're all friends here, and I think it would be great if we had a nice full membership directory. And our next message is from our dear Dorothy. Come on up, Dorothy. You could welcome Dorothy with a nice round of applause too.
Good morning. I have been asked to give an announcement about our fish. Now, fish is for fellowship. That's the F. The I stands for imagination. S for sharing. And H for happiness, because happiness comes from sharing your imagination. And things are going to be wonderful today. We're going to have right out here, 12:10. We are going to concentrate on expressing and tangle. I can never say that. Zen tangle. And it's a small piece of paper and markers. And all you do is let the spirit flow from your pen onto the paper, and you'd be amazed what you can do. It's just incredible. In fact, I had never done it before. And I did it at Lindsay and George's. And I created something that I'm quite proud of. Right there, the fish. So anyway, we will be sharing with you pottery with air dry clay, seeding with Dawn, planting, jewelry making. It's amazing. And it's not just for the women, guys. Come on. It's for you too. Okay. We are going to be starting today. So it'll be the last, oh yeah, it'll be the last, Lizzie was just showing it. It'll be the last Sunday of every month. And we will provide food, sandwiches. And so if you choose to come, and I hope you all do, then you won't be hungry either. We promise. Okay, thank you very much for your attention, and let's see you all there.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. That sounds fascinating, and it's a way to be involved. There will be a new book this week. We're starting a new book study, and that will be on Tuesday morning beginning at 9:30. The book is called Prayer Works. Everybody is invited to attend on Zoom, and it's the same Zoom as our Sunday Zoom. So if Lorraine is coordinating that, and it should be fascinating. We've just completed our other book, and it was a wonderful book. There's a lot of discussion, a lot of interaction. And Super Bowl Sunday, SOUP, Super Bowl Sunday. Again, we'll have delicious soup, a chance to interact with each other in fellowship. And there'll be lots of different kinds of soups, 5 to 8 different soups that our members bring, probably very healthy soups, delicious soups. We need some volunteers to make their favorite soup to share. Please see Lorraine during fellowship if you have a special soup recipe you'd like to share. And love offering. There's no specific fee. Our prayer chaplains today are Dawn. Sylvia's not with us. Dawn and Wilda online. And Dawn will be in the prayer room.
God's majesty, heaven is in my heart, and in that presence joy abounds. Heaven is in my heart, the light of holiness surrounds. Heaven is in my heart. Whoa, whoa, 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 heaven is in my heart. We are the temple for God's love. Heaven is in my heart. And Christ is the foundation stone. Heaven is in my heart. His presence here is our true home. Heaven is in my heart. The Spirit and the bride say, come. Heaven is in my heart. Yeah, whoa, whoa, heaven is in my heart. Whoa, whoa, heaven is in my heart. Whoa, whoa, heaven is in my heart. Whoa, whoa, heaven is in my heart.
I think that's a keeper. We do have a prayer chest, and some of you might wonder, so what about the little paper that goes into the prayer chest? You write your prayer, you affirm as you are putting the name of the person on that paper, you affirm that they are whole and well. You put it into the prayer chest, which just happens to be a repository for it. The moment that you write that prayer, your solid, powerful affirmations go out to the universe. True, Dawn does go and pluck out all those prayers at the end of the month and sends the list to all of us prayer chaplains. Does that mean that it sits in the prayer chest for a whole month unprayed for? Absolutely not. Your faith in writing that prayer in the first place is the faith that sends out affirmations of love and wellness to whoever the name of the person is on that paper. It's an act of faith. When you pray Silent Unity, when you phone Silent Unity, 1-800-NOW-PRAY, your act of faith begins the wellness activity before anybody answers. It starts in your heart, as always. And now let us go into prayer. I invite you to breathe into the stillness of divine presence, to breathe into the wonder of this moment, surrounded with love and folded in faith. We breathe in love and light. We hold in prayer all those close to our hearts, family members, friends, fellow Unity members, guests, all those who matter in our lives. We hold in prayer the families of anyone who has lost a loved one to death in the last month, the last 2 months, the last year. May those who are still grieving be comforted by knowing that love never dies, that loving memories always remain. We also hold in prayer Unity of Vancouver Island and all the members of the board of Unity Canada. We hold in prayer anyone in our world who may be suffering physically or mentally, emotionally, socially, whether they are children in school, whether they're educators in school, whether they are parents, grandparents, foster parents. We hold all in prayer, surrounding them in loving energy. Amen. And now it's my pleasure to welcome George Wilson, who will be sharing the daily word and introducing our guest speaker.
The word for today, the word for today is free. Divine wisdom, love, and strength guide me to freedom. While I may not be able to control what is happening around me, I have the power to choose my response. Even though it may seem paradoxical, assuming complete responsibility for my reactions and choices is the key to my freedom. No one and nothing can make me feel a certain way. Living from this awareness gives me the power to create my life from the inside out. I choose my thoughts, words, and actions. If I don't like what my life is showing me, I have the power to make new choices. I do not squander my spiritual freedom. Other people and worldly situations have no control over me. Taking full responsibility for my life, I am free to create my future in living from my divinity. From 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 16, as servants of God, live as free people, yet do not use your freedom as a pretext for evil. Our guest speaker this week is Wendy Karr. Wendy joined the Unity movement in 1984 and received her licensed Unity teacher status in 2000. Best known for teaching history of Unity and Bible courses across Canada, Wendy also serves on teams at the national and international levels. She is honored to be back at Unity of London. With her message, Power of Faith, please join in welcoming back licensed Unity teacher, Wendy Karr.
Thanks, George. Well, since I haven't seen you, Happy New Year. I feel like it's the new year. I have a tradition with my godson and his family that we watch a movie or we go out to a movie and then we order in Chinese food. And my god dog, his dog, who's a boxer bulldog mix, weighing, I think at last weight was 76 pounds, decides that he must sit on my lap and not let me go until, you know, I have to say, Chance, I need to go home. Yeah, so well, Happy New Year. So change happens. I changed the title of the talk. And I changed the title of the talk and the content of the talk, I don't know how many times, because I don't know about you folks. I have so much change happening in my life right now. And it's what's really, I don't want to say frustrating because I don't want to affirm that, but it's little changes. It's not a big rock in my shoe. It's all those little pieces of gravel that kind of get caught in the middle, you know, along the edge of your shoe. And no matter how much you shake it and bump it, it doesn't come out. You know that? So I realized that if I was going through change, perhaps some of you might be. And if you're not, well, welcome to my soliloquy. And we'll just see what happens. From James Dillett Freeman, who many of you know already, wrote The Prayer for Protection, The Traveler, and myriad other works. He was considered Unity's poet laureate when he was alive. To live is to change. Nothing alive stands still. A tree may rest in winter, but only to gather strength to grow again in spring. So I'm assuming, knowing what I know of London, having had my grandparents living here until they passed, I got a dump of snow where I am. You guys had a dump of snow this week? A bit? Okay. I had the most that I've had all week, all season. On my way here, I started in clear skies with wet roads. I went to foggy roads with foggy skies with wet roads. I went through snow. I went through rain. It was like, okay, Mother Nature, can you make up your mind? What is today's weather? And while it is sad that my trees are bare, they are so beautiful when you get that nice sticky snow and it becomes that combination. I have a huge pine tree that's actually not on my property. It's on the property behind me. And on those really snowy days, it's just gorgeous. I have so many pictures I've taken of that tree in winter because it is so gorgeous. And yet the tree out front is also gorgeous. I love it. It's it's some kind of a berry that I don't know what it is. The city planted it and it's pretty. It's gorgeous. It has the most beautiful fragrant blossoms in spring. And I know that in order to have those beautiful fragrant blossoms, it needs to rest. It cannot, as any plant cannot. You know, any that produces blossoms and berries and fruits and whatever, they can't bloom all year round. And neither can we, actually. From Ernest C. Wilson, Unity Minister, he actually replaced our co-founder Charles when Charles was ready to retire from pulpit speaking, and he became the head minister. Times of change are times of fearfulness and times of opportunity. Which they are to be for you depends on your attitude towards them. So how are you viewing the changes in your life? Here at Unity of London, in the broader Unity community? Some of you may not know this, but I have been so deeply immersed in it that sometimes I forget that other people haven't heard. So if you'll bear with me for a moment and take a deep dive into the weeds. So I've forgotten how many years ago, Unity decided it was time for a 5-year review of the education program. The education program that Pauline has gone through to become a licensed Unity teacher, the program for the ministers who are up and coming, the program for spirit groups, everything, youth and family ministry, the whole enchilada, which is where a lot of my time has been spent serving on teams and providing feedback and doing those things. And it's been really interesting to see the responses of different people on the teams. Mine, because as George indicated, I've been in Unity almost 40 years now. Actually, I'm almost at the point where I had walked through the door 40 years ago. I became a voting member in November of 1984. So I got a couple months to go before I hit that anniversary. And for me, I'm like, oh, not this again. Okay, breathe through it, we'll get through it. And other people were really concerned. I was on a call where people were visibly upset and anguished about, you know, well, what's that going to do for me becoming a minister? What's that going to do for me becoming a licensed teacher? And I have students that are really close, but they won't get done before you change the system on them and you know, and things like that. And I just throw that out there because sometimes that does seep into our broader understanding of what's happening in the Unity movement. And what I'm aware of is how does that response, reaction by me reflect how I'm going to react or respond to my own internal changes? Those things that I feel like I have no control over. Point in fact, anyone else breathe a sigh of relief that the Bank of Canada didn't change interest rates? I was sending them, it's like, it's fine how it is. It's beautiful how it is. The economy is doing wonderfully. Just leave them the heck alone. And that's a very human response. And we have this capacity to pull into our human self and our spiritual self. But I need to put one more piece into this foundation. From Eric Butterworth. I'm hoping some of you have heard of him. I'm hoping some of you have read In the Flow of Life. What does theology mean? Sorry, theology, whether traditional or metaphysical, tends to crystallize truth and thus obstructs the flow. And somebody said to me, metaphysics can't be crystallized. Yeah, it can. It can if you're not moving. To me, it's a sign of you're on the plateau. You're not going down, you're not going up, you're on a plateau. So what does theology mean? So I went to the dictionary. I went to not only the online dictionary, but my physical dictionary, and they agreed, which was nice. There's nothing like, you know, something gets lost in the translation between going to online. So it describes it as religious beliefs and theory which systematically developed. Okay, I'll buy that. Or the study of religious faith, practice, and experience, especially the study of God and of God's relation to the world, or the study or science of God. And I got thinking, okay, I'm liking that science of God because that really fits into Unity's practice of God isn't something out there in the sky with the big book and the quill pen, ready with the lightning bolts, but rather God is expressing as us. And that is a science. That is how do we take that understanding and make it useful? For those of you who might like a more literal translation of theology, it literally comes from the word theos, meaning God, and logos, meaning word. So I want to suggest for the rest of this talk that I'm not going to talk about theology because I recognize that word has a lot of baggage to it. One of those bags that you get to the airport counter and they say you might want to get your credit card out because you're way over. So let's agree, if you're willing, that instead of my saying theology, I'm going to say beliefs because it really is your beliefs. We talk about theology in different denominations, and it's really, when you boil it down, it's what they believe about something. So one of the things is, so what do we mean by beliefs? So for beliefs, I mean things like, what do you spiritually believe? Do you spiritually believe that Christ, an aspect of the divine, is present in, with, and as you? That can be a huge one for folks, especially if you're new to Unity. Welcome to this wonderful belief. Scientific principles. Do you have a belief in scientific principles? Do you believe that the world is round or slightly round? There's a bulge apparently at the middle. Which I find kind of funny because I got a bulge right about the middle. A belief in societal norms that when a red light is red, that cars that are not emergency vehicles with lights and sirens flashing will stop for that red light unless their brakes fail or something like that. That we have a societal norm that you will do that. So basically, everything brought together. So something that folks, and I was guilty of this a little less now. I think I've got the lesson, and I'm not having to have it show up for me as much anymore. Is the belief that once you become someone who has Rev at the beginning of their name or LUT at the end of their name, that all your challenges end. Pauline, am I correct on that one? Yep, I heard someone say they just begin. Amen. That is what I mean to do. And I am working through, because I'm so engaged at the national and international levels, with where Unity is going. Who are we? And we've been around for 130-ish years, not quite 140 yet. And things have changed. When our co-founders got married before they founded Unity, Myrtle had to quit her job because teachers couldn't be married. And now, you have teachers who are married. You have teachers who are openly members of the LGBTQ plus community. And I know there's additional letters, and that's as far as I can get before I get confused. So forgive me, my friends. You have teachers who openly have tattoos. You have ministers who openly have tattoos. We have things that I'm not sure if Charles and Myrtle would recognize us until we open our mouths, and then they'd say, oh, yeah, I remember saying that. I remember teaching that. But it can be challenging to make sure that what we're doing in our Unity communities is speaking to and embracing what's happening out in the world, what's happening in our smaller communities. I think of places in the States who, in the last few years, as we were, all securing in place to try and avoid COVID, that factories closed down permanently and people and communities suddenly had no they didn't have that landmark in their midst. They had folks who had to leave the city because they couldn't afford to live where they were. God is calling. No worries. It happens. And this one really spoke to me. When we seem to be at the end of our human limit of strength, we have only to switch over to the infinite power of our spiritual resource. And I think sometimes we forget that. I think sometimes we forget that we can call on our spiritual resource for anything. It doesn't have to be holy. It doesn't have to be good. Charles was asked by a saloon keeper, is it wrong to pray for whiskey? Think about that. I mean, the fact that the guy would actually ask the question blows my mind, because clearly he was thinking about things. He was probably thinking about his bottom line, because he was thinking about, how am I going to pay my bills and my staff and myself? And our co-founder said to him, no, there is nothing you cannot pray for. And what's interesting is we're told in the article I got this from that the saloon keeper actually got himself out of that business within the year and went on to something else, because he had had some sort of revelation about what he was doing, perhaps how it was harming others. I don't know. I can't say, it's not in the article. But how important that is to our understanding, to be able to say, God as me is reflected in all I do. And sometimes it's hard to say that. There are parts of my life that, I struggle with that. Like when I got the bill for the body work my car needed after having a disagreement with something. And my first thought was, OMG. And then my second thought was, okay, I have the means to pay this. I know I do. It's just not in my bank account right now. But I know that I have a skill set that's in demand. I know that I can put it on a credit card temporarily so that I can, get my car out of the shop. And I can choose how I'm going to look at this. Am I going to look at this as, oh my goodness, you were so clumsy when you didn't make that curve properly? Long story, won't go into it. I said some very ununity-like things when it happened. I freely admit that. I can swear, I just choose to try not to. But in that case, I recognized I needed an emotional outlet, and that felt like the best one. So there we are. But that brings me to our other co-founder, Myrtle. Faith is the first and most necessary step in healing. And for those of you who don't know about the founding of Unity, really our founder was more Myrtle. And Charles just kind of caught up to her and ran with it. Myrtle knew what she was talking about when she said this or wrote this. I'm not sure which. She was born into a family that had a toxic belief that she was going to be sick because tuberculosis ran in the family. Imagine how our present day child protection agencies would respond if a child came to school and said, I don't need to learn anything. My parents say I'm going to die young, and so this is all a waste of my time. I think some people would have some issue with that. And yet that is what Myrtle grew up hearing repeatedly. Later in life, when she was given a terminal diagnosis, she had 2 young sons at the time, she realized there had to be an answer, even though medical science at that point, which included things like leeches and questionable mixes and potions and lotions, She believed that there had to be a solution, there had to be something. And from her understanding of faith, of how to language things, she managed to not only heal her body, but heal it to the point that she was able to carry her third child to term at the age of 42. So rather than begging for healing, as she had been taught in her childhood, she chose something different. She chose to change her mind. She chose to change how she prayed. And the first thing she did was apologize to her body. Now, that might sound kind of woo-woo, but it makes sense to open up and cleanse that area. And she would say, I apologize for thinking that you are anything less than perfect. I apologize for seeing you as being filled with sickness. And then, having cleared out those false memories, those toxic beliefs, she then affirmed her own health and ability. Perhaps one of her most famous lines came from that period. I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. Boom! That just blew up every belief she had been raised with. Talk about a change. Now, it took about 2 years for her body to fully respond, but respond it did. When we talk about healing, I think one of the challenges that we have, one of the limitations we put on ourselves, is we tend to think only about physical healings. You know, oh, it's raining, so my knee, just is a little, whatever. And yet, in the studies I've done in my time in Unity, probably the greatest aha I had, well, I had a bunch, but the biggest one was, instead of saying, when I went to my car, I don't have the money for that, I instantly recognized that not as a lack thought, although it is, but I recognized that as a call for healing in my prosperity consciousness. When I have an argument with someone or a disagreement with someone, I now recognize that as a call for healing of that relationship. And for me, healing is now more than just, what's my physical body doing? Healing is about relationships. It's about economics. It's about my prosperity. It's about how our government is working. Do you pray for the government? I hear some laughter. I was raised in another denomination, but my best friend and owner of my god dog was raised Anglican. And so I often went to church with them. And in that prayer book, there is a prayer for the members of the government, a conscious decision to do that prayer. It might feel kind of funny, but what harm can it do it to send light and love and divine wisdom to those who are in those places? And it can be so easy to forget that that is what we're called to do. We're called to help heal the world. Let's go back to Charles for a moment. We must learn to let go, to give up, to make room for the things we have prayed for and desired. So Charles, once he watched Myrtle, and she was clearly getting better over those 2 years, and then she got pregnant, so something happened there. I don't think angels and stars were involved, just saying. While this month's faculty is faith, one of the other ones for November, which we've just passed, is release. And we need to have that release when we're going through change. We need to be able to let go of aspects of our lives to move forward. And I choose to use the word or the phrase move forward. I don't like the phrase move on. I used to, and then some things happened in my life, And I saw a TED talk and somebody was talking about moving on and or moving on versus moving forward. Moving forward for her, and I have adopted this, means you take whatever lessons you have learned from that. You take whatever gifts, whatever memories, whatever things in your heart makes you feel, say, yes, I'm glad I had that experience. It might have been challenging, but boy, it changed me. And I so am appreciative that it has changed me and that I'm going forward with this. An example I came up with, where I grew up, my BFF lived next door to her aunt and uncle. And her aunt and uncle had the most amazing house. I don't know when it was built. I'm going to pull a number out of the air and say 1956. And God is my witness, nothing changed in that house. It had a fridge that I only saw on television in old black and white shows that, like Leave It to Beaver. That kind of fridge that you pulled the handle down and then you pulled it this way and it had half circles that you put the food on that you sort of swung out. It was wonderful. And then they passed and my friend's parents passed, and so both houses were sold. And I was feeling kind of sad about it. That had been, a place of comfort, a place of respite, because we'd go to her place after school for a little while before I would go home to my place. And on that property now are 2 houses. And I'm quite certain the student houses. And I thought, well, I can be upset about the change. I can bemoan the change, or I can give thanks for the memories I have, the love that I still feel, and say, I'm moving forward. I can let go of those other feelings. I freely forgive all others and myself. From Daily Word a while. When change comes, it can be easy to blame others. When the Bank of Canada changes interest rates and your mortgage payment goes up, it can be really easy to blame others for that change. What I'd like to suggest to you is that those feelings of anger, those feelings of frustration, one of the things Unity hasn't always done well, they're getting better at it generally, is dealing with shadow work. Dealing with those negative feelings. And I don't like to call them negative feelings because I'm having a human experience and it's a human feeling. Ergo, it's part of my journey. And we've been told that anger is part of that journey of grief, of letting go. Many of you know that my husband passed a few years ago. I opened a drawer of his desk that I thought I had cleaned out, and I hadn't. And I cussed him because in that drawer, I found a piece of paper I had been looking everywhere for the last 3 years and could not find. Now, cussing him because it was misfiled, cussing myself because I missed that drawer. Not quite sure how. There really aren't that many drawers in his desk, but I did. And somehow I got in my mind that I had checked that drawer. And so I didn't, go back and say, let me just double check that. So I needed to, and I did, I needed to take myself out of that and take a deep breath. Say, I forgive you. I forgive me. You were human. I'm human. Mistakes can be made. Things that seemed right at the moment in time can change. And as you go through changes in your life, I invite you to make forgiveness a part of that, as well as doing the release work. Forgive yourself for any beliefs you held as a child. You couldn't have known any better. And I don't know about all of you, but I got the message regularly that adults knew better. And whatever they were telling me to do or to believe or how to act was in my own best interests, and I'd better do it. Notably, no talking during Lawrence Welk. Forgive yourself for past mistakes. You may find that they might have led you into uncomfortable positions, situations, but that in the end, it was part of your experience. It was part of what you needed to get to where you are now. And there was an early New Thought teacher named Emma Curtis Hopkins. She actually taught some of the principles to Charles and Myrtle, and then they took in them and ran with them and moved them to another level. But okay, I got to go into the middle here. So Lorraine, I hope I'm in camera okay. So Emma Curtis Hopkins taught that when something happened that you weren't too happy about, take a deep breath. This too is good. This too is God. And I demand to see the gift and the blessing from it. And the hands on the hips are really important, folks. You got to get that stance because you need your body in alignment with your brain about what's going on. And it's true. There have been things that I have struggled through. I was in a toxic job. I knew I was in a toxic job. I knew I needed to leave. And almost to the day that I sort of said, okay, I'll stay until I retire at 65. Literally, my world blew up. Actually, our whole department blew up. And I was gone within 3 months. And I look back and I say, okay, what would my life have been like without that in my life? I wouldn't be doing this. Because that toxic job taught me where I really wanted to be and what I really wanted to do. And what I really wanted to do is teach. I didn't realize that. I grew up with 2 teachers. Okay, I'm a TK. That's when you do something in second period and your dad knows about it before the lunch break is over, even though his school's at the other end of the city. So what does this mean for us? What does this mean when we can make these changes? And some of it might be just as simple as saying, you know what, I'm inviting my spiritual life into more of my life. I'm inviting that part of me to sit with my anger, my grief, my frustrations. I'm not going to sweep them under the carpet. I'm actually going to spend some time reviewing those. And it's been very helpful for me. So I'm speaking here as someone who's kind of tested it. Now, sometimes I got to light some candles to get into that space. Sometimes I got to get a teddy bear out and feel that pressure against my heart while I'm working on it. And yet I have been blessed to find the gifts. I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to lead you in an exercise before we go into meditation. And I'm calling on some Muppets from Sesame Street to help us. I'm not going to play the video. I've given you the title at the bottom. The background to this is Sesame Workshop did a series of workshops for military families. And I actually have U.S. military in my family. My cousin went through 3 tours of duty and was honorably discharged at the end of them. And I remember questioning when I heard from my aunt that she had re-enlisted while she was in Afghanistan. And I wanted to say, wait, you could get out and you're staying? I needed to change my mind. I needed, instead of saying, why the heck did you do this? But instead to surround her with the blessings that she knew what she needed to do for her soul's growth and expression. And mine was to hold her in light and love, and her battalion in light and love, and to say, I don't understand your path, but I will support you. So this was one on grief. And I stumbled across it one day, and it just opened my heart. So the mother and daughter here, they have lost their father in combat, is the setup. And the daughter's having a difficult time building a block tower. Oh yeah, I get that. And she starts having a meltdown. And her mom says to her, you remember what we learned at grief camp? And it was so simple. And I was like, okay, somebody on the staff has to be a unity person or a new thought person, because it's so what we would say. So the first thing you do, I hope you all have some space, is make yourself a hug. You don't have to stand up, but just give yourself a hug. Take a deep breath. Give yourself a squeeze. And then you affirm to yourself, even though things have changed and some things may never be the same, I am still me. I am. And then fill in an affirmative word for yourself. I am loved. I am loving. I am strong. Okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to put our arms down, give them a shake out. We're going to do it again. Squeeze. And those of you at Nelson, I want you to read along with me. It's on the screen. Even though things have changed and some things may never be the same, I am still me. I am. And let's take this space into our meditation. And just breathing in this space, knowing that regardless of what change happens, I am still me. I am still that spiritual being in human expression. I am still made up of the 12 innate abilities. I am still filled with love. I am loved. I am loving. And just breathing into that space, let us give ourselves permission to feel those challenging feelings that come up with change. To forgive ourselves any time we might have chastised ourselves for being angry or frustrated. For acknowledging that that is part of our experience. I am still me. Even when I'm feeling angry, I am still me. Even when the frustration threatens to overwhelm me, I am still me. And some thoughts to take with us. In the midst of pain, I affirm healing. In the midst of broken hearts, I affirm love. God is a presence of peace that knows no bounds. And let us now take a few moments in the silence to just allow these 3 affirmations to rest on our hearts, for ourselves and for the world. I move forward in faith that sees good and insists on good. And so it is, and so it shall be. Amen.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for a message we all need to hear, from a speaker we all need to see. The message of change that you shared with us will resonate with all of us who've had to go through changes, big or small. Thank you. This is one of our favorite singers who came here in person several years ago. And I think the song really fits in with Wendy's message.
There will come a day, and it won't be long. I will stand right up. I will be so strong. I'll be filled with the light. I'll be open wide. Every cell in me will be unified. I will raise my hands. I will lift my eyes. I will shout to the world, I am alive. I will dwell in the now. I will flow like the wind. I'll be solid on the earth, like I never have been. I will build a life of beauty, fill it up with love, manifest all I desire, whatever I dream of. I'll have all that I need to be, the everything I am. The love of God will flow through me, pouring through my hands when the balance is true. When the balance is true. There will come a day, and it won't be long. I will stand right up. I will stand right up. I will be so strong. I will be so strong. I'll be filled with the light. I'll be filled with the light. I'll be open wide. I'll be open wide. Every cell in me will be unified. I will raise my hand. I will raise my hand. I will lift my eyes. I will lift my eyes. I will shout to the world. I will shout to the world. I am alive. I am alive. I will dwell in the now. I will dwell in the now. I will flow like the wind. I will flow like the wind. I'll be solid on the earth, like I never have been. I will build a life of beauty, fill it up with love, manifest all I desire, whatever I dream of. I'll have all that I need to be, the everything I am. The love of God will flow through me, pouring through my hands when the balance is true. When the balance is true. Yeah, when the balance is true. There will come a day, you know it won't be long, that I will stand right up. I'll be so strong. I'll be filled with the light. I'll be open wide. Every cell in me will be unified. I will raise my hand. I will raise my hand. I will lift my eyes. I will lift my eyes. I will shout to the world. I will shout to the world. I am alive. I am alive. I will dwell in the now. I will dwell in the now. I will flow like the wind. I will flow like the wind. And I'll be solid on the earth, like I never have been. I will build a life of beauty, fill it up with love, the balance is true, the balance is true, when the balance is true, I will raise my hand. When the balance is true, I will lift my eye. When the balance is true, when the balance is true.
That's for the singer and the composer, and also for all of us. We need to strive every day to keep that balance. When he came to sing at Unity several years ago, he brought his tapes, and I bought the tape with that song on it, and I played it day after day in my car. And I was singing away to the song. I'm sure people driving by never knew what was going on, but wonderful message. It's your opportunity to donate. And I know that often many of you donate through Tithely or online, Visa, Interact. There are lots of ways of donating. And we know it's not just about funds, although money does help us to keep Unity growing and pay all our bills. It's about you volunteering your time and your talent. And the program that will be going on after our service today, the FISH program, started with people genuinely saying, how can we contribute? How can we have fun and do something special? So I hope that as many of you as can will stay for the FISH program today. And also to consider other opportunities to volunteer here at Unity of London. The opportunities are limitless. They're only limited if you think they are. So just consider that. How might you volunteer? And Amber is here every Sunday. So if you have an idea, pass it along to Amber or Lorraine. And I'm sure they'll be very grateful, or me, or any of the people on the board. And now let us join in our blessing. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And this is a prayer that we share every Sunday at Unity. And I hope that you also think of sharing it throughout the week for your own self. The light of God surrounds me. I am the light. The love of God enfolds me. I am the love. The power of God protects me. I am the power. The presence of God watches over me. I am the presence. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. And now we join together in our closing song. And just before we close and before everybody wants to have a little chat, which is very natural, if anyone would like to come up and share a message for Wendy, about Wendy, or about anything else, please come on up. We'll